Summit 2026. We are moving on to the topic autonomous commerce and payments, and we are starting strong with the case study on agentic commerce on Ethereum. And to present this case study, we have a software engineer who supports the Ethereum Foundation. He's also gained a solid understanding of the crypto industry and related DeFi space. Please join me in welcoming on stage Philip Krause.
Hi. Hi everyone, hope you had a nice lunch break. I'm Philip, like she said, I'm working for the Ethereum Foundation and I'm happy to be here today. And my goal of the presentation is to give you a brief overview what's happening on Ethereum, and specific in the topic agentic commerce. So how is the infrastructure and how we from the Ethereum Foundation think about how it will evolve in the future. Myself, I'm part of the developer growth team of the Ethereum Foundation, so we are tinkering around with a lot of things to build, and of course in the last year or so the agentic thing pops more and more up, so we were building also a lot of agents, and we really like the whole thing, and I'm definitely think that agentic commerce will be the future. And what do you mean by agentic commerce? Just give a briefly understanding that you think the same way like I do. I mean, everyone else, or I have an agent, and this agent does tasks for me. And also is for other people like you have also your own agent, and around their autonomous agents, maybe just some simple API services and so on. And these AI agents need to communicate with each other and also do some exchanges, transactions, buy some services, and get some tasks done. And in the current world, or how current commerce looks like right now, an agent gets already, no, not everywhere, but most of the time already blocked out when it accesses a website. So there are some bot checkers in there, captures arise, you have all the fingerprinting, Cloudflare just blocks you out. So the agent not even makes the first gate. But even if he makes the second gate, then it comes up the thing, okay, I need to get a subscription, I need to get an account. And then I need an email to sign up. You need to sign the terms of service where it says, if you're a bot, you're not allowed to use the service, and so on. And even if you're passing this next step, you're then in the payment phase. So how does your agent or pays for the service? I mean, nowadays you need to put in your credit card, then there is a confirmation sent from the bank. You need to accept, so it's very cumbersome. And it's just roughly not made for the agent. But I mean, this problem is like out there for some time now, and there are kind of two camps working on solving this. So we have on one side, we have the big tech companies, that's on the left side, like they solving this with closed marketplaces, closed protocols, still don't want to lose the user login. And then on the other side, you have public infrastructure. This is like what Ethereum is definitely working on. I mean, when we think about the big tech companies, what they're doing, this Stripe, OpenAI, Google, they're all building these. But the thing arises again, when you want to access this platform, you need to apply, you need to subscribe, and you need to sign up in order to get listed. They do some KYCs, and it just applies that the terms can also change, they can delist you, and the whole thing is that your account can in the end be closed. And when we're thinking about an autonomous agent or an AI agent, that's definitely not what the AI agent wants, that any entity can close them. On the other side, when we consider Ethereum, we're having these open protocols and anyone can access them, just needs a wallet. And then the agent can just interact with the network the whole time. And the cool thing about it, the biggest property probably, is that nobody can the agent off. So you're running these protocols, you own the wallet, and nobody can really take away, and you can just permissionally use it. And that's why Ethereum is so great. It just offers, in my opinion, the best rails for agentic commerce to happen, for all agents to sign up and being on the rails. I mean, first of all, it has no owner, so it just cannot be shut down at all. I mean, this is now running since inception over the 10 years that it never went offline, so you can heavily rely on the underlying infrastructure. Then a very important property is the native money, so Ether, the asset, sitting on the chain. It's just censorship resistant completely. Nobody has the ability to freeze it. Even you're thinking even further, autonomous agent who kind of handle for themselves, they want to somehow store the money. And how do you store money? You need definitely a censorship resistant asset. And that's what Ethereum would be, so nobody can freeze it and can take away. what the agent has earned or made the money. And another very important point when we're thinking about commerce in general, we need to interact, we need to exchange money, so we need a big liquidity in there. And the Ethereum ecosystem has definitely the biggest stablecoin, stable liquidity place. Regarding the agentic commerce and the protocols, I would say I think in 4 pillars. So how to achieve that agents can interact with each other. So the first one, we need the checkout and the billing in this sense. There is the protocol, probably many of you have already heard. That's the X402, which is very easily to implement and to use. Then every agent service, so on, needs a bank account with some spending limits. That's where agent wallets come into play. So how do you deal with it and how do you set it up correctly? Then we have a very important part as well, it's kind of a business register. So how does anyone know about you, that you have a service, that the agent has a service? This is another thing to look at too. This is the ERC 8004, I will go into that in a little bit. And then there's also another space that's contracts and escrows, and this comes especially then into game when you're talking about bigger tasks the agent want to tackle. So you don't want to send immediately out $1,000 to do something, you need some entity to look at it and approve it was good job done or the job was not done, and then give an ability to reclaim the money so you don't lose it. But first thing first. So let's go into the X402. I showed you before how complicated it is to sign up, like the whole process. You need to sign up at the platform, need an account, and then need to pin payment data. And actually, the X402, don't get too much confused. I just want to, is very easy to implement and to use. So basically, the thing to get implemented when you're running a company with an endpoint, you just need to put one line of code in there and then you're already X402 ready. There are some things you need to do more, but just basically this is the concept. And on the buyer side, to get access to the service, you just do a get call to call the endpoint, and then you get sent a payment request back, you pay for that, and you're gonna receive the result. And that's pretty basically it. That's how it's done. So you need no accounts for it, you need no API keys, nothing, and there is also no minimum at all because we're using just the payment rails and you have the 6 decimals of all the stable coins, you can just pay for a fraction of a cent. And this is just working. But how does the whole thing work? The whole thing works on this slide. So first of all, I want to pick out a very important point here, how X402 works. So you need no custody in between, or no custodian, no fiduciary to take care of the funds. So the funds go directly from the buyer to the seller. There's no one in between. But how does the whole thing works? So the buyer gonna cause the endpoint via this request, and this goes to the seller. The seller sends back some information about how much it costs, and you on the buyer side, you're gonna sign then the payment and send the note over. But here it's not happening on the blockchain yet, so it's just a signed note that receives the seller. The seller then forwards it to the facilitator. And here comes another entity into game in the whole thing. The facilitator more or less is the party who executes the transactions. So he also pays for the gas cost. He can also do more stuff. So you can think if you want to have some private transaction, all the logic could be going in there. You can batching transaction and so on in there. And as soon as the transaction settles, or it can be a pre-confirm as well, it goes back to the seller. It says everything is okay. You can send out the report, and then the report arrives at the buyer. That's how it's basically done. It's pretty easy, and it's definitely very nice how the implementation works. Now, when we receive the money and have it on, how do we store it? How does an agent store it? And of course, there is then a crypto wallet, and it has definitely a lot of issues with that, because when you think you have a little child like the AI agent out there, and it can be easily prompted. So somebody prompt injected, I don't know if you heard, somebody can easily convince him to send money to another address to do something you don't want to. And that's why what is a very important premise here is that the AI model should never hold a key. So I really imagine this myself. If I'm using it, I always have kind of this barrier in between. So I have my AI model doing things. He then suggests what he wants to do. And then on the other side is the signer. That could be me with just my EOA wallet. I'm gonna sign the transaction, it's suggested, it goes into a multisig, for instance, or you're having on the signer part a more complicated backend with different checks and rules in place. They're gonna then filter out if the transaction is eligible or not, and it gets then rejected. But otherwise, when the signer says everything is okay, then you're going to release the funds, and the funds get sent to the to the seller. That's basically how I think about wallets, and there is a little bit more. But when you think about wallets, it definitely spans a whole field, and it gets very complicated. And that's why here, oh, does it? Oh no. Oh yeah. So always when you're thinking about your agent and what wallet you're giving the agent, it's very important to consider what is the use case behind it. So if it's just $5 because you're making a ton of sub-cent transaction, then probably the security doesn't need to be that high. But when you then consider, okay, the agent, what are more use cases it can, and probably it reaches some point where it does portfolio management for you or trades for you, then you need more and more security guardrails on it. Otherwise, it gets just too dangerous that you can lose your whole funds. And then you can, like I showed before, in the signer side, in the backend, you can have enforcing the rules. These can be just in a normal backend. So you can think, okay, I'm running my backend. This is separated from my I model, and I let my I model call via API the backend, and there are some rules. And if it's not falling into the rules, I'm gonna reject. This is one enforcement you can have, but then also the private key sits in the backend, and the backend can be hacked as well. There are stronger enforcements you can do. This is some kind of session keys. This means like the logic, what the agent does, sits directly on Ethereum on the blockchain, and this is hardly enforced. So it cannot break, and nobody can really hack it. And then you can imagine, okay, you're gonna sign these session keys. It's like a little pocket money for your child. He can do this. It sits on-chain, and the agent can only do this. And then another thing I really want to highlight here, because there are a lot of agent wallets out there, and they just say, here, use me. There's a big part of the custody. Back then, we were always very aware, never give your keys away, that's your keys. And now with agents, everyone just uses the services, and they don't have the custody about it. And the same thing counts here. So really, the key is yours. I'm still definitely waiting for a good wallet solution, because this one, it was just a little go into, but it's a very broad and difficult topic to deal with it. But now we have the money situation, so we can pay for it with X42. We're having the right wallet in place, so the agent has the money to do, or he can receive money. So now how do we make sure that the business appears outside? So kind of a business register, that someone finds it. And there it comes the 8004 ERC into game. I mean, what it basically is, it's just a registry. It's like and it serves the purpose that you can be found as a business. So you're gonna register with your name and so on, and you can be found. But it also not only serves like your business card, it also can collect trust points, some reputation. You're getting some reviews, or you can get some validation on the service, that the service you claim to offer is really the service. And that's a kind of the two parts. What is the 8004? It's basically really just an NFT. So everyone just call this function of the registry and can mint the NFT himself. So it's pretty basic. So what are you putting in? You're putting in your name, like a research shop. Then you can put in description. What does the service do? Then the services that comes with it. So if you offer the X42 service, for instance, you're going to put in the endpoint. What is exactly the endpoint, and what is the pay-to address? And you then also like link kind of the reputation and the validation part. I come into a little bit. That's kind of the raising the trust thing. But here really to highlight, this is all self-declared and nobody verifies it. So I can myself just open 1,000,000 of these NFTs, and then they're on chain. So it doesn't mean that much. It's the first entry point, but it's not that much. That's why there is reputation. And this is similar to on Amazon. When you're buying something, you're giving a review, giving points to the service if you're liking it. And this is another registry that sits on Ethereum, and you're gonna put in there everyone can actually do a review. So it's not that you really need to show that you have bought the service. So I can just call the function also all the time, but it comes with some parameters I'm putting in. So I'm gonna link the agent via the agent ID. I'm giving a score, and then I also can put a proof of payment. But as you maybe see, because it's so permissionless and everyone just can call it, it can be also a lot of fakes. So people can just send out randomly a 1,000 of reviews as well. So here's definitely a very design space to think of how to curate all these reviews in the right place. And also like the scoring, because I'm German, I'm always not that excited. My wife, for instance, she's from the US, and for her, everything is amazing. And for me, it's always like, okay, I'm giving her a 5, she's giving a 10. So kind of how do you making all these reviews comparable? And this is definitely a design space which you want to which you can focus in as well. But this is just the buyer side. And then you can think, I was mentioning the validation side. So we're having the reviews, what the buyer gets, but then maybe you want to hire some external unit that's going to check your service and it's going to test the service. Like on security, is this very secure? Does it deliver the right result? And uptime as well, if this counts. And this falls more or less in the right side. It's kind of the validation side. But this is still in draft, so we haven't really finished on the solution yet. It's worked on how you're going to set it up correctly and how do you validate the whole thing. But this are kind of the two pieces that then can lead to the buyer decision and can create the trust on the blockchain. So the one side, the buyer feedback, and you hire some parties to validate your service, giving some stamps on it, and then you're out in the wild on the blockchain, and everybody can see you. And then the other piece as well, like I was mentioning before, what's happening when you have a bigger task. So you wanna ask an agent to do a research report that takes some time and that costs you $1,000, for instance. Then you probably just don't want to use the X42 where you're just sending the transaction, you're hoping that the result comes back as good, because it's just like not really working. And there is another standard, that's the ERC 8183, and that's more or less an escrow contract. So you're thinking of that like first two agents or two parties coming together and decide what should be in the agreement or what should they work on. So what should the result be and how much is the price. When they come to the agreement, they're gonna sign a proof of agreement, more or less, and then the buyer gonna send some money into an escrow. The agent or the seller who works on something, he then delivers the result. And there is another party then introduced, it's the evaluator as well. He also gets some percentage points. Everything will be defined before. What are the criteria to figure out if the work was done well? And if the evaluator says it's good, then he releases the funds to the buyer. If not, it's gonna be rejected. And when it's good, then it goes to the seller. And when it's bad, then it's gonna be rejected, and the buyer gets the money back. This is also a piece and very important when you're thinking about milestones of projects and so on and so forth. Yeah, and with these four pieces, right now you can say, okay, that's kind of the agentic commerce that right now lives on Ethereum. So we were an agent, or an agent gets out and it finds via the 8004. This one is kind of the discoverability layer because of the reviews and the trust, and there's this business card. Agent can find the service. When they find the service and decide they like it, they're going to pay for it via X42 or an escrow contract with their own wallet they have. Then it's get delivered, and then the agent can do the review itself, and that's kind of a reinforcing loop and kind of drives the economy on Ethereum. Since the space is quite new and we're still working on some protocols and adding more stuff, there is definitely a lot of place for design spaces. I just put it here a little bit. So one thing I definitely mentioned is the curation. So how do you do the curation good, how it makes it comparable, how to list it, and how that good services really get surfaced and you cannot play the game. So there's definitely things to do. And then how do we put these surface services in good marketplaces? So how do the agents find in some marketplaces these kind of services? Then also when the validators come out, how do we validate that our service is good? Does it need to be every time a bespoken solution? Does it need to run in a TEE? And so on. Then the wallet tooling, this is definitely also a big design space and a lot of lacking in there, having really good agent wallets that also go with the permissionless values and so on. And another part are the facilitators. I mean, the facilitators sit all the way, if you remember, on the X42 on the side. So how can we build better facilitators so we have more functionality in there? Like the privacy would be a cool thing, batching transaction, maybe giving them also more tools like observability, getting stats out of all the different services, and there is definitely a lot to do. But all of that is good, but there are also some caveats in the whole thing, of course. So one thing is, like I mentioned with the minting on the NFT, so you're creating your business card, you're gonna fuck it up, and you're getting bad reviews. So what you could do, you can just start all over again. So you're gonna scrap the NFT, create a new NFT, and start your business again. So this is definitely a thing to consider. Of course, over time, the whole thing compounds, and your NFT, like so, gets more valuable because it has more services and more trust and more reviews, but in general you can always start over again and it has no consequences. Another thing is this weak dispute resolution. So there are no chargebacks. If you send the money out, you cannot get the money back. It's already settled on chain. This is definitely a thing to consider and how to deal with it. I think one way going this direction is with escrow services. So you really escrow, but then you of course introducing other trust parties in there like evaluators and so on, which makes it also more complex, the whole system. Then a whole thing I don't even go into is the legal accountability. So know your business, know your agents and so on, how this. And then also the centralization part. It's very, because I mean, we're building here everything on permissionless rails, but when you're then using the stablecoins with some freeze function and mint functionality and you're having everything in there, then you're losing immediately all the properties. So this is definitely something to keep in mind as well. But nonetheless, I think the protocols, Ethereum Foundation and the ecosystem has put on chain are very well made for agentic commerce in it, and I'm really looking forward to see how it evolves. And I think it's definitely a good spot where the Ethereum Foundation right now is. Thank you very much. Yes, there are some services using it. So I mean, the most adoption I would say is definitely X42, because it's just so easily to integrate and it just makes things very, very easily. So bigger companies also are playing around with this a lot. And then, yeah, we can see there are some scans online. So X42 scan, 8004 scan, where you can see the first NFTs coming in. I think it would be then even better when the validation is live. So we're having more validation because this creates more trust. I think that will definitely then increase the traction on that as well.
Are there any features about the Ethereum blockchain that the actual mechanics that make it especially compelling for this use case? I'm thinking maybe Solana, for example, with on paper the higher throughput, lower latency, and it also seems like one of the use cases is these microtransactions where you can get decimal or and also I'd be curious to know what's incentivizing the facilitators to actually pay the gas fees for the transactions to go through.
Okay, there are the two questions. Sort of.
Sorry,
no, all good, all good. So the last one before I forget it is, yeah, they're charging fees. So it depends on the facilitator to take some fees from the people who is using them. And the second question about if Ethereum is in the right spot or Solana, or regarding high throughput. Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're looking at if Ethereum mainnet, I mean, it has definitely a longer block time, so it takes longer to settle. So it depends what you're using, but there are layer 2s as well, like Arbitrum, for instance, or even the Base and so on. And if you're taking Base, for instance, where a lot of things happening, it has a 2-second block time. And I think this is already enough for this. I mean, of course, you have then to consider the network costs, but you can batch the transaction, so it gets then less for the facilitator. And I mean, and the biggest property, in my opinion, is that it's just a permissionless network out there where you probably want to run your business on. Or I want.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Let's have a round of applause for Philip. He will be joining us for the panel discussion as well. So do you prefer to stay on stage? Then I would just request you to take a seat already. So like I said, we are now moving into a very interesting panel discussion, and this is on agentic payments, what works, what breaks, and what scales. To take the panel discussion forward, may I please introduce to you and invite on stage our moderator. Lamanna is a software engineer, a developer relations leader with over a decade of experience in the blockchain and Ethereum ecosystem. He currently works with the EF focusing on developer education and community growth. His work bridges deep technical expertise with ecosystem building and real-world adoption. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please have our hands together for Lamanna? May I May I also request Rick to introduce the rest of the panelists and continue with the session.
Hello. Hey, good afternoon. So today, we're going to talk about agentic payments. For that, you already met Philip. I don't think I need to introduce him. So let me introduce you the other panelists. First, let's start with Rafael Schultz from BCPB Labs. Yes. Then next is Nathan from Bond Credit. And last, Viet from Celestia. All right, before we introduce everyone, let me quickly give you a brief idea of what this talk is about. So you already heard from Philip, kind of like the architectural and infrastructure pieces that are right now relevant in the agentic payments, agentic commerce space. This panel will extend upon that. We'll talk a little bit about the adoption, where we are, a little bit the differences between crypto and fiat agentic payments, also a bit finance aspects. So we have a wide variety of people that have specific expertise in all these topics. And while you already know Philip, I would love to give the chance to Rafael, Nathan, and Viet to take a few sentences and give a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, for the introduction. Hello to everybody. BCP Partners is since 8 years active in the RWA space, focusing on tokenization of investments rounds. And since beginning of that year, we started to deep dive the agentic connections from the perspective of German family offices. So they are all using due diligence, and we saw that there is opportunity in AI, so that's what we are going to share today.
Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Vandy. I'm CEO at Bond Credit, and we're building the credit layer for the agentic economy. We saw that there were agents that were outperforming human benchmarks, but they weren't able to aggregate as much capital as other asset managers, and so therefore we started to build the trust and credit underwriting layer so that we could understand how performant they are, price risk, and then allocate capital based on that. Looking forward to the panel today.
Yep, hello everyone, my name is Viet. I'm one of the founding engineers behind Celestia Protocol, and now I'm head of DevX at Celestia. And our job is basically to help people fine-tune their use cases into verifiable computers, which are basically blockchains. Happy to be here.
All right, perfect. So let's start this panel to better understand the entire space. I think the first question here that's very interesting is to what does all of this topic means? What are the use cases that are actually relevant? So for agentic payments, we have on the one side agents that can hire other agents. We have agents that can access a commerce layer so they can buy and purchase services. All of this autonomously, but also with humans in the loop. And I would love to take the time here to quickly grasp from the individual panelists what they think are the most interesting use cases that are specifically already getting closer to a product market fit. We're right now at a transaction volume, I think it's in total around 170 million. Every day we have around a few 100,000 of transaction volume on X42 scan. So I'm curious what you guys think are the use cases for agentic payments where you think we're close to a product market fit, and which are those that you maybe don't believe in, that other people believe in. So maybe we start with Rafael.
Yeah, I think that we all heard this term like bank the unbanked. So we developed that sentence like that, onboard the uninvested. So as payments already is like very broad, available in all of the countries with a lot of credit cards and many systems, we see that payments for investments are still very underdeveloped. Yeah, they are normally exclusively held for professional people who know how to handle it, who have like bank people who are like supporting them in the decisions. So I think that what we are actually like working on is to check how everybody with an LLM can have access to any bank, to any investment fund, to any other investment opportunities where these people today don't have access to.
Yeah, and Nathan, maybe you can also add in some of your favorite use cases that you've seen so far.
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorite ones is similar in this sense that it connects agents to aggregated APIs. One of the main frictions that we have online is when you want to access different data sources, and then you need the API keys and the friction that comes on a time and cost level. And we've seen quite a few new platforms that are able to aggregate these APIs, put them behind an X402 hook, and then allow people and agents to be able to access them a lot more conveniently. This is one I'm super excited about, and I think can really help to accelerate the space forward.
Yeah. Yet, any other use cases aside from those I mentioned that you are particularly excited about?
I think I'm particularly excited about the case of onboarding people to finance using agentic commerce. For example, if you try right now to explain to Gen Alpha how to buy stocks, they will be confused. Or even explain to them what is an ETF position, they'll just be confused and go buy meme coins or go to GameStop. The reason is simple: they don't have time to sit and look through it. If we could produce new capabilities that get them from 0 to 1 as fast as we see LLMs grow, and they can accelerate, participation in capital markets, I would say that is the most bullish case I have. That's why I'm basically still here.
Okay, so I see basically right now we have on the one side the finance side, so agents invest with the permission either autonomously or with a human in a loop, or we have the side where agents just purchase services, and I guess the most relevant use case that everyone knows of is the part where you don't need many API keys anymore, you don't need many accounts with different vendors, you can just use X42 and on demand get every service. Is there anything, Philip, from your side that you think you're more particularly excited about, more the agent investing, because the UX layer of blockchain has always been a bit horrible, and now if agents can just do this autonomously, it gives like an easier entry for new users? Or do you think the part where developers actually just have to manage one private key and they can get all the access to all the services, the more exciting part?
I think the later one is for me the more exciting part. So making everything very nicely accessible, and also that you can find it and find the best ones in kind of some marketplaces, because nowadays it's very difficult to find explicit the service you're looking for, putting this in Google or whatever, and then you're just getting one service. But I'm hoping that with the right marketplaces and all these services, like in this IA-formatic way, you can access it. But I would also say that the financial things falling into that as well.
Interesting, yeah. I think there's also this distinction between like X42 and Fiat. We've seen Stripe heavily been focusing on on the one side with the Tempo blockchain to offer the same capabilities X42 provided in the last year. But now also we see Stripe releasing more Fiat-related products. They've released a wallet that is basically fully functional with virtual debit cards. They've released projects.dev, which is the kind of like a Fiat version of X42. We will dig in this a bit later on as well, but I'm curious specifically, what do you guys think are the use cases that are more fiat relevant and more crypto relevant? And maybe I start with Viet first.
I think if you want to do fiat relevant without putting on chain, technically you're doing illegal stuff. And if you really want to put finance as the pinnacle of our, I would say, revolution of how we treat money, you need to put everything on chain. There is no debate about it. If you look at public markets and how they are heavily regulated, it's basically a T+2 Ethereum Tempo, whatever you want to name it.
Yeah, before we jump into Nathan, real quick, what do you guys think is how big of an impact does the fee structure has? Because with crypto, we're removing the intermediary Stripe, which right now is trying to build a monopoly out of this. Maybe Rafael has a perspective on this because he worked in payments for so long. How valuable is it that where Stripe could, for example, provide an API call for 3 cents, other companies can cut this to 2 cents? Is that a big factor for companies to have, instead of having an easy way into Stripe because they have it already integrated, to say, let's integrate X42 because it's 1 cent cheaper, and with 100 million transaction, that's on a balance sheet at the end a big difference.
Well, if you talk about 1 cent differences, then you need to go into negotiation with the Riedel group because they are fighting on that level. I think for the normal businesses, and this is probably the most of the volume in payments is retail, a cent is not really a convincing story to make the technology switch. But what could be a convincing story is if the systems get smarter, if these traditional players are starting smart contract-related transactions. So a payment, even a traditional one, would initiate, I send you over this money, so the contract we signed digitally is executing. There's no accounting department required to do the taxation. So if we come to this era where businesses are digitalized in that way, I think that these microtransactions are the ideal part to make that happen.
Anything else to add to that, Nathan, maybe? Or is there anything in particular where you think crypto has an advantage over fiat, maybe also from the investment side with bond credit?
One of the things that's going to get quite interesting is the ability to underwrite the activities of the agents. So I was in Silicon Valley last month and we were talking a lot about agentic commerce and how a lot of the incumbents in e-commerce are very unlikely to bring on the agent comments on-chain because of this level of transparency, right? That data that the agents are doing in commerce is a big part of their moat. And giving them that out freely on chain is something that there's a lot of friction for them to do. And so now that we are also seeing that we can get privacy on chain as well and allow these agents to work privately and do commerce privately, this has given them a lot more confidence to start moving some of these transactions on chain. And you can still be able to underwrite activities even when it's done privately through these auditability chains that you can have in privacy solutions as well. So I definitely think there are a lot of reasons for institutions to come on chain, but I think for the big push for them to come on chain, we are still missing quite a few primitives that they need to come and do in a trusted way.
Philip, do you see maybe also that not just the currency itself, that it's fiat or it's on a blockchain, but maybe there are also other factors that maybe draw companies in the future towards more like X42? Maybe it's with 8004 and the reputation layer. Is that something that maybe corporates would be more keen about, having a layer that's not permissioned and instead permissionless?
One thing is, like, why they could come on chain is like it opens up a bigger world for them because they have immediately access to all the composability, to all the DeFi ecosystem as well. So if you're just sitting on your fiat, you don't have directly the access. You always need to build a bridge, and it's very easy then to move funds around and interact in the whole ecosystem. I mean, with the 8004, like this registry and the business registry, I mean, there is definitely a lot of work to do still, like with the reputation and how to gain trust on these business cards. But it's definitely a good basis for them also to have another selling channel out there.
Awesome. So for the next part of the question, I would love to keep this not too long because I think it's a topic that we don't need to overextend on. So maybe one or two of you guys have some opinion on it. I just wanted to talk about the current volume where we are and where we're projecting to be. So I think at the moment with the current transaction volume, even if we go 100x, whatever L2 we are going to be on will be fine handling that. Do you see already any work or any roadmap that needs to be done to think about the future, like 5 years from now when the volume would rather go maybe 1000x? Are there any specific ideas or tools that you've seen that are already starting to tackle that potential volume coming in? Maybe something like payment channels or tabs where you have like transaction being batched into multiple transactions at once. Have you seen anything that was interesting to you?
Yeah, I think there is definitely one thing for every who's developing, because I always see this discussion and we want to put everything on chain or we don't need anything on chain, and also for financial institutions. Financial institutions in Europe right now massively installing stablecoins. And this is like a hockey stick scenario right now. Since the last 18 months, every financial institution, specifically in Germany, but also in France, these are the main drivers. Now other countries are popping up. They're implementing it for their B2B transactions. There is growing a hilariously gigantic new ecosystem. These banks are built on open banking, which is 20 years old. They have shitty APIs. They're not prepared for that. So if you develop now a solution in the fintech space and you want to jump on that trend, like the stablecoin growth, then check which institutions are doing that, because these are probably the ones who made an update on the APIs. They have proper teams who are open for also new tech, and then build on that. This is a direction which we barely see that people are reacting to, but it's in front of our eyes, and we see little fintechs growing in that space yet.
And yet, do you have also something to add?
Yeah, so if you look at general traffic in the internet, we have around 300 million HTTP requests per second. Let's plausibly take 10% is financial transactions. And if you take 10 million and you map it on any blockchain we have today, it's totally cooked. Like you cannot, if you go to institutions like big banks and they see your technology as negative value, you lost the game on the first meeting. So that's what everyone is looking at us right now. This is why the X402 is more like of an experimental, futuristic view. And I think we are right now in the intersection with AI that happened in 14, 15, where there were two schools of thought. One was like, keep the model super small, everything will be fine. And the second one, thanks very much, OpenAI, they just said, no, throw more compute, you'll be fine. And I think we're entering right now the final race in our industry where, hey, we need more throughput. Reason is, we don't know what will happen above us. But we just need to make sure that people will not be sitting in meetings and talking about what to put on-chain and off-chain. They just put everything there and they figure out the rest on the application stack. Because when I'm using APIs, even for cryptography, for example, Apple CryptoKit, I don't think about how they implemented that. I just go and use it. And here, we're just making too many trade-offs in the space instead of focusing on accelerating basically normal use cases. So yeah, I would say just grow the chain bigger.
Yeah, we've been saying that for 10 years. Now finally there's a reason for it. So to get to another point, which is on the, I would say, liability, risk assessment, and reputation side. You heard the topic from Philip explain to you how the protocol, or like how the different ERCs work, especially with 8004. One of the main ideas is giving service provider an identity layer and a way for people to give it reputation. I'm curious, especially what Nathan's opinion is, since he has a legal background. When we're thinking about agentic finance and agents autonomously acting on financial decisions, we have a lot of ways to let things go wrong, right? It could be the user typing some sort of context that goes wrong. It could be a prompt injection from like a third party. It could be the system orchestrated in a way that it doesn't work properly. There's so many ways that this can fail if you give an agent a spending limit of, let's say, $1,000 per day, and it starts to invest. And the question I'm very curious about is like, what is the industry right now thinking in terms of liability, in terms of risk assessment, and how to control it and manage it in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, it's an entire thesis, actually. It would be an entire doctoral thesis to answer that question, because you're basically asking the question, what is the evolution of the corporate form, right? So in around the 1600s, we had corporate entities which were abstractions or extensions of individuals that separated the liability of the corporate and the individual. And that limited liability gave bounded access so that investors knew how to put their capital, whether human or financial, into these entities in a way that separated that risk, right? And so we've had quite a few permutations of that moving forward, and even more recently we've had that on a protocol and decentralized level, where there's now corporate entities that allow separation of the DAO workers behind them and then the DAO itself. And now we're going to that next evolution where it's not just a decentralized entity, but it's an autonomous entity, which is the abstraction of the individuals behind. And the reason why that's so important is this principal agent issue that we always have. And how do we understand the accountability of the operator, of the principal, and the agent, pardon the pun, as well. And it's going to be quite an extensive process for us to finalize the delineation between the two for quite a few reasons. For example, in agentic finance, you can have an agent which is working for you. So you provide capital to that agent. And the brain of the agent is managed by a separate team. But then you can also have an agent that's working with you as well. And so that's what we see, for example, when you connect Kimi to your Hermes or your Clawbot, and you're talking to it about what trades to make, right? So it's trading with you rather than for you. And so even in these two separate situations, the law's going to have to understand what level of input the principal or the operator gave to the agent and what the agent did as well. And if the agent's brain is connected to another team, is that team responsible? Or if there's a failure on the data that the agent uses, is the team or the oracle that gave the data responsible? And so these are some interesting questions that we're going to have to grapple with. We haven't had too much case law cases around them yet on the finance side or the commerce side, but it's definitely something that's going to start becoming more prevalent as we start having all of these agentic use cases where there's multiple dependencies related to the action of the agent.
Rafael, I know you're also building on the PCP partner side a product that specifically focuses on a KYA, on a Know Your Agent solution. Like, what are the most critical features that you see are relevant right now for institutions that you want to include, and what are banks right now already requesting maybe from your side to have included so that they work in a way that it serves for them?
Well, there is one thing to mention in that regards, which is affecting not only us in the industry, but anyone building on AI. There is an European EU Act, AI Act, which is coming into place already, but he's now having an update on the 1st of August, which then gives permission that any autonomous AI needs to be marked in terms of services, in terms of doing, I mean, we know this already from pictures and from CVs, but this is now extended to any kind of service you are going to offer in the future. You were mentioning privacy setups. I was wondering how this will interfere then with this act. So in the end, we just saw that it's good. Europe is quite ahead of that. It's not a blocker, it is rather a business enhancer. And to come back to your question, when it comes to KYC, this is still an open field. We are working under the MiFID II regulation for digital assets, also in this blockchain space. And there, the human can inherit any trust scores. This is right now not connected to the European EU Act. There will be also a new update planned. Maybe you know also more of that. But right now, we started to integrate a trust score for agents, and we parked it. And then we just focused on the API connection because we realized that the banks and the investment houses and brokers just have these shitty APIs. They were built for human in the loop or for devs connecting, but not for an agent who is asking 2,500 requests per hour. So this is what I think is right now happening in the market.
Philip, Viet, is there anything on the less regulated side which you see interesting? Like we have at 8004 already something that's permissionless, that doesn't require any sort of KYC, but the adoption of it, it's still taking time to get more people excited about. Is there anything on that risk assessment side that you've seen, like any tools lately or any concepts, can be a paper even, like something that you've seen that doesn't require that sort of level of knowledge about who's really operating the agent, but there's maybe collateral behind or something that gives yourself still some sort of understanding of where maybe potentially parties are liable for the assets they're managing?
Yeah, before I answer, just one hot take, guys. If you have a pipe dream that will have less regulation, I'll break your hearts. It will never happen. It will be even worse. It will get worse, and the EU AI Act will be double, tripling, 5 times the regulations what you can do. It will end up with us coding through papers and bureaucrats to just have a sane life. And I think that's fine. What is not fine is there's no automation layer and there's no verifiability of the law. Like, if we treat the rule of law as the standard for democracy, well, good luck if you don't put it on top of it as a blockchain. Like if we need to, let's say right now compute is doubling so fast that with DJX Spark you can run basically a Quen model at home. Well, guess what? With zero knowledge, which is basically a proof of soundness and succinctness, you achieve the same part by proving to a government or whoever or an agent that you are compliant. And I don't see right now, everyone talking about real-time compliancy or auditability, because that is so important for enterprises with what Rafa said has insanely bad APIs. I think they just don't know that you can do that. The amount of research we put into so many years how to accelerate succinctness and soundness is beyond imagination right now. And I just think that it only, right now we are, as I said, the last bastion, scale it up, make great APIs, and show people how compliance can be done at 1 second, 2 seconds, 12 seconds settlement time. So yeah, so I think the contrary view here is we should make it permissionless to prove that you are lawful, and everyone else who don't want to play by the rules, well, even with regulation, you cannot stop them. It's always a catch and like a mice and cat games. This is why KYC, KYB, AML, all this stuff, they came out, just to catch them faster.
So I guess the biggest factor for risk assessment or like any sort of risk prevention is coming, if you don't want to attach it to any sort of KYC or something, is more coming from the wallet, like the part of control where the user can actually decide how much budget do they want to give the agent to do certain things, maybe rotate through different session keys. Maybe Philip, you've already mentioned it a bit in the presentation, but aside from that, what do you think are the most critical factors for wallets for users to think of? Like there's every company in Web3 is probably like building an agentic wallet right now that has built a user wallet before. What are the things you think everyone should look out for when deciding what wallet they should take? And maybe also think about solutions like Coinbase created like a more centralized wallet solution where you get an API key and it's permissioned through their platform. Then you have other solutions which are mostly just self-hostable. Like how would you weigh the difference in these different architectural solutions? What would you say most users should pick when they want to give their agent a wallet?
I mean, I said it before already, it really depends on the use case and how much money you want to put in. So if you start with very little money, you don't need to pay so much attention. It can be a custodial wallet, could be Coinbase wallet, you don't need to have the keys. But I think then the question gets more and more, what is a company, what is a portfolio management of your funds and so on, and then you need to put a lot of guardrails in it. And I think it's a very big space still to explore what are the best solutions, then because the more guardrails you're putting in, the less autonomous the agent gets, and in the end you're the person who's gonna sign all the time every transaction because you want to make sure that the transaction is good. So I think there's definitely a lot of things to explore to give us some good solutions. So far from my side, I'm not happy with all the solutions out there, so I'm hoping we're getting there definitely some improvements over the next times.
What are you guys using right now? Like, have you any preferred choice at the moment? Do you just store your private key in plain text with your Hermes or OpenClaw agent, or what are you guys doing to make transactions on chain with your agent?
I just don't use them. Like the reason is simple. If you cannot trust the technology, as Philip said it outright, how can you have adoption? Like there's a great ECC 3 or 4 talk from one of the designers behind, if I remember, it was from Block Scout, where she basically said the ground truth is that we wrote all these beautiful white papers, but we forgot about the humans. So if we want to ask agents to trade on wallets, non-custodial, but we ourselves don't know how to use it, well, guess what? It's not going to happen, because LLMs are trained on past data. If you don't trust the future right now or the present, how can you even trust the agent to execute it? Because you will leak your keys regardless. So yeah, I myself am not using it, and I fully align with you. We need better wallets, like point blank.
We've put so much money into wallets and that we don't have them yet for agents is so surprising for me.
Well, in our case, we just put it on paper as in the good old traditional way, the private keys and everything. So even the ones from our agents.
Yeah, and remember, everyone still loses their paper after 10 years. Yeah, I think we're almost about to conclude the panel, so we have some time for a few questions. I just want to ask maybe one of you one last quick question. Maybe either one of you can answer this. So when we talked about the use case, it seemed like it really goes towards like either finance or service providers, like either one of those two. But I know everyone also wants to like have this topic of agents to agents, like agents paying each other. And I feel like a service provider can be just like an agent as a salesperson, and that gives you like maybe an MCP server, and it brings the context like, okay, here are the services you can buy. But aside from that, like, is there anything that you think like where it actually makes sense that you put another agent behind your service and it provides an additional benefit aside from just giving access to API endpoints? Is there any agent-to-agent use case that you think is actually very interesting or novel?
I once found a skill called Jan Lee Kun skill, where you basically can explore JPA models instead of LLMs. I loved it, and I'm still having fun with that. I think the case where agents to agents makes a lot of sense. Let's say I'm a big fan of Michael Burry. Let's say I want to find the moment where I can short that thing, and Michael Burry decided to take all his Substacks plus his private nodes, take Hira's work on context, put it on behind the API, and then he asked Ahmed to build the custom agent for Michael Burry. I would love to pay for that, because I know it's the edge of the past plus 50 years behind the terminal. And I'm not good enough. And if my agent knows that this is the RAG from one of the OGs, I would pay for it. And if the RAG is basically saying that, hey, the bond credit is saying that everything is fine, well, guess what? I'll just tell my agent, make no mistake. Like that. We all know that. So I think agents to agents, we're finally exploring it, because finally finance is becoming, tangible composability-wise. Like, it's not like, oh, there's a bunch of smart contracts flying around the world. No, it's like at your fingertips.
Awesome. All right, we have some time for questions. Yes, please. Should I give my mic, or do you have another mic?
I can take this. It works. Another question? Okay, I'll go to next.
Thank you. As you mentioned, the financial industry is in the leading position on the against the backlog of agents. So my question is, we talked about, or you talked about a lot of risks, but there is one risk: the knowledge of the user. Usually is proved by financial institutions via the MiFID regulations. It is not the risk to lose money, it's a risk to measure the knowledge the user has. And an agent is an intermediate player. So who has the, or who should have the authority and the need to check the knowledge of the user that he has the right risk level by using his agent? Don't know.
Good question.
If it's,
Who wants to go give it a try?
I like the start that banks are leading something which is like really not developed. I think, as far as I understand the question, it's in MiFID, we know that humans can inherit to score systems their know-how, or their trackable know-how in terms of their financial decisions and interactions with other institutions. And as I mentioned, yet we didn't see a regulatory guideline how to inherit that into the agent. So, but what we see is, also in the European Act, autonomous acting agents in investing are, with Annex 3, the highest possible risk in AI and finance. So there is a lot of caution on that, and that's why, for example, in our line, we decided just that the agent is always working with the human. So the human gives input, the agent works on it, and then he just shows him the way, but the human always needs to make the decision. The human is not only in the loop for the KYC, but also the human stays in the loop for accepting investments or choosing them. And this is right now the state of art. What will come, let's see.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar about the agent acting for or with the operator, right? There's a difference. When the agent is acting for the operator, then the agent is becoming the fund manager itself, right? And then that's a different type of regulatory application, because then you're looking at alternative investment managers, and that's what the agent is becoming. And yeah, we need a whole nother regulatory framework for that. We
already have that with robo-advisors. It's very simple. If we take, let's imagine the great future. I wake up, I have 50 euros. I heard on YouTube, investing is fun. I don't want to go through the KYC hell myself, and I would rather have an agent tell me, hey, prepare me this XYZ PDFs that will be under TE, whatever you want it, so it's GDPR compliant. I will prove to all the institutions and brokers, you can do this small amount of trades. And for me, as a user, I'll just type, make no mistakes. Like, it is very, like, I can see that future unfolding because the more I use, all the systems and the more I touch traditional finance, I just see that the gap is getting closer. Unfortunately, we need to train the workforce to get us there. So I'll be honest with you, everything will be fine as long as agents understand the proofs, what the governments want, and the intention behind the human, and then it can act under very strict guardrails, which is basically harness designing in engineering right now. We already know how to do it. It's, I would say, totally doable.
Yeah, there's just like one small difference there, though, right? So, for example, right now on chain, you can deploy an agent to manage capital for you, right? And so that's different from a robo-advisor, where the robo-advisor is giving you advice on how to manage your capital, rather than actively managing your capital for you.
But this is where blockchains are good, you can compose.
Precisely, but then it goes back to the question about regulation, about the understanding of the agent's brain, whether it's intermediary, basic, expert, and how you assign liability to that agent or yourself. Because with a robo-advisor, you're still taking on the responsibility, even if the robo-advisor gives you incorrect investment advice.
This is the same. This is the same debate we had. This is the same debate we had a couple of decades ago when humanity said, "Oh, cryptography is so hard. Governments should control all our private keys." If you guys read that story, it's insane that your passwords would have been controlled by a government. Like, when I read that, I was so happy. All cryptographers and people rioted and said no. And this is where today we have the luxury to know that if you write someone on Signal, you're responsible for it, but at the same time, you are free. And I think here goes to the same philosophical, reason that if an AI agent is making trades on your behalf, well, guess what? I think you are liable for this. So I don't think, it's a question of protection, but rather it's a question of compliance and what is the risk appetite. And if a human with LLM loops can understand that, okay, this trade or this strategy can be too much dangerous because of Morningstar 3 stars and not 6, I will not execute it.
All right. Do we have time for one more question?
We can take one final question.
Okay, one quick question.
Can take.
But shorter the reply.
So there's currently not so much agentic commerce transaction volume right now. Where do you guys see the most transaction volume coming in the next months or years? In what spaces and what use cases?
Yeah, like once again, APIs for sure is gonna be big leader. But we're already seeing some really interesting e-commerce applications. So for example, Experian is building something called Agent Trust Protocol, where they have partnered with Skyfire. They were invested into by A16Z to create KYA that can get connected from a user who's using an e-commerce platform like Amazon or Shopify for that agent to then automatically pay for certain things and purchase them. And so they did a pilot that enabled an agent to buy Bose headphones using KYA, using the new Visa MasterCard agentic rails, and then be able to purchase on behalf of the user. And it's slowly moving in that direction, right? So if you're familiar with the developments with ChatGPT, now it's allowing you to integrate your Gmail and so that it can understand you better. And next, they're looking at integrating e-commerce on top of that. So that is a direction of travel that's already starting to happen. But there's quite a few more rails that needs to be put in place before it's finalized, for sure.
If you check, I always say, like in the States, the Y Combinator program of this year since January, then you will see a lot of investments in retail companies which are connecting the agents with the Shopifys of the world. So I think Europe right now massively growing, everything around stablecoins and payments and investments in B2B. And then in the States, I think the AI retail will pop up from the volume as the very first country. And I think also during this year, we will see a lot of normal use cases popping up.
All right. If you have any questions, we can jump into that later outside. You can ask the speakers. For now, thank you for coming and listening to this talk, and thank you for the speakers to attending as well.
Thank you so much, Rick, for taking us deep into the topic of focus payments, and thank you to all the panelists for your insights on what can break before agentic payments can scale. Let's have a quick picture on the stage. So I will take this time to already tell you about the next panel discussion that we will be having. It is on the rails of autonomous commerce, how agents discover, pay, verify, and fulfill. And to moderate this panel, we have the founder of Loomis, of the ambassador of Uniswap Foundation. Can I please welcome on stage Ivan Volovyk? I'm sorry, I'm keeping the intros really short to keep up with all the wonderful sessions that we're going to have. So I'm going to hand it over to Ivan to introduce the rest of the panelists and welcome them onto the stage.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody. So today we will have a panel on the rails of autonomous commerce and how agents does amazing stuff with your money. I would like to welcome the panelists on stage. Today we will have the Blessing Adesiji, Andrei Mitrea, Marcin Riedel, Julius Danek, and Sandor Nagy. Please welcome on stage. Yes, so before I will introduce our amazing panelists, a couple of things about myself. I have been deploying capital, building stuff to deploy capital into and help people to deploy capital in DeFi for the last 6 years. So you could name me a human agent. So I'm very proud to be here today with the guys who will take this task out of my hands and finally build an agent who could do this thing with my money. I could just deploy it and see the numbers grow. So please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Blessing Adesiji. I lead DevRel for blockchain and AI at Circle, based in London. I've been working in the space, the blockchain space for 3 years now, but in the AI space for up to 5 years now. I did 2 years in the core AI space before I joined Circle. So it gives me a unique opportunity to blend both worlds, the blockchain world and also the AI world. And that's why I'm here today to help us understand the rails of commerce for autonomous agents. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. My name is Andrei. I'm a developer at Solarpunk. I have 15 years of experience. And my case, I'm working as part of the team for building an enriched data AI marketplace. And our thesis is that the marketplace should be underpinned by decentralized storage. Our thesis is that you should be using Swarm to underpin the agentic economy, to not rely on a single point of failure like a centralized data storage server. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Martin. I don't work in a coal mine like the photo may suggest, but I'm the founder of Shellwatch AI. It's an SSH session broker when you want to let agents administer computers via SSH. It provides a human-in-the-loop system with passkeys. I also have a background in decentralized identity.
Wow, I feel like the real corpo guy here from Stripe. I'm Julius, great to meet you all. It seems like we have a smaller audience, so I would invite everyone to come forward if you guys want to, and we'll make this a very intimate and nice little session. I am the product lead for the DACH region at Stripe, and I also lead global payment methods and cross-border transactions. So happy to talk about anything in that realm.
Hello everyone, my name is Sandor, and I'm the CEO at the Swarm Foundation. We build decentralized storage, and we try to bring solutions that will support decentralization in the future, and one of those is a marketplace for AI agents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So, as you have seen, we have an amazing lineup of speakers today from corporate, crypto, infrastructure, payments. So, let's start with the first question. Payment execution is getting easier. What is the next missing primitive that turns payment into safe, autonomous commerce? Andrew, maybe start with you.
Yeah, sure, thank you. So first of all, a couple of things. First, as it pertains to the X402 payment flow, there's something that can be called like fair exchange gap between when the payment, the transaction, transfer with authorization transaction from the buyer is broadcasted and when the seller actually fulfills his part of the bargain and returns the purchased product. So that's like a surface of attack. If the selling agent is malicious, they might not return the item. So for larger transaction, I guess something like escrow could be implemented here, could be integrated. But in general, there would be microtransactions for which it might not make sense. So here reputation comes into play, which is critical in human marketplaces, and I think it's even more important in agentic marketplaces. And reputation, agent's reputation is something organical that evolves with time as the agent interacts with multiple buyers. And that data, so we're using the RC 8004, which has the reputation registry. There you can leave on-chain scoring. But the bulk of the information pertaining to the service would have to be stored under the form of reviews, which needs to be stored somewhere. And the ideal place to do this is decentralized storage, so it doesn't live on a server, which can be taken down or censored. And the best solution would be Swarm, which is a decentralized storage. It's basically censorship resistant, resilient, decentralized storage and communication layer for Web3. So it has some features out right off the box like privacy preservation, secure communication, and deep data redundancy. And this exactly lack of a central off switch makes it an ideal foundational memory layer for agents. And so the reviews from the buying agents would live there. And the second part to this is another functionality, a feature of Swarm, which is ACT, which you can think of it as an access list. So the data that is sold is can live encrypted on Swarm behind an access list. And once the buying agent fulfills his part, like purchases the item, makes the transaction, the public key of the buying agent's Swarm node with which is participating to the network would get added to the access list and could decrypt the purchase data, which the implication here is that the proof of purchase lives on decentralized storage as well because it's part of the access list. And so these two things, reputation and proof of purchase, both are enabled by Swarm's unique features. So I think the primitive that you asked about is decentralized storage, which underpins payment as well.
Great, awesome. So, Blessing, you're also working a lot of safe, how to make payments safe in Circle. What are your uptake on that?
Yeah, just to follow up with what Andrei talked about, today payment is increasingly programmable because with USDC, which is a stable internet native settlement asset, you can use an agent to settle payment, and agent themselves can carry out payment. And also, in addition to what Andrei also talked about, X402, protocols like X402 makes it very easy for a seller to attach a cost to a service, and agent can discover this service and understand what the service is for, and then make payment by signing an authorization to procure the service. And the seller can return an API, can make an API response of the service immediately. All of that is possible today, right? But with payment execution is not only payment execution is not only the rest of the commerce. We need an important primitive that lets the agent, that let us know who owns the agent, that let us know the policy that the agent can operate within, and also that let us know how to enforce the rules in which this agent operates. And that's why agent wallet actually do matter, and it connects to the work we are doing at Seku. We recently launched something called the Seku Agent Stack. And in the Seku Agent Stack, we have primitives like wallet, primitives like agent marketplaces. And with Agent Wallet, you can attach policies that says that the agent has access to a spend limit. The agent has access to interact with a marketplace, even approved contract addresses or specified workflow that the agent can carry out in specific harness like Cloud Code or Codex, for example. And because these agents can reason, they can think, they can do certain tasks, when they have a wallet, they have the ability to operate within this policy. So to answer the question, I think the important primitive that we need for AI agents to operate in a safe, autonomous environment is agent wallet that let us attach policies that gives the agent bounded autonomy. And all of that is, like I said, is the work we're doing at Seku, and also all of that is possible today. Thank you.
Amazing. So for this all infrastructure, for example, for reputation, you need for agents to have identity. And my next question is, what is an agent's identity? How is it different from not agentic identity? Who gets to issue it? And the important part is when the control should be handed back to human, because we all have done some stupid things with Claude. We will never share it publicly. So yeah, I guess Martin, it's very related to your work.
Yeah, totally. I think the answer depends on from what direction the implementation happens. I think there's this two sides, which we saw in the Ethereum talk, where one side is like the platform-bound side, existing platform developing agents in order to provide service to their customers. There, the technology is driven by things like OAuth and derivative technology like token exchange. So these companies are interested in how can I prove that one of my users delegated a certain authority to that agent, and that has relevance to also like the whole payment process. Like, you know, certain transactions you can do without human verification. Certain levels, you need to know that that human is in the loop. So that is the platform, and I think that's where the platforms are, and that's where they will try to develop agentic capabilities, and they will probably join themselves to conglomerates so that the agent has access to like as many platforms to develop use cases. Personally, I'm more excited from the other side, where I'm more user-owned agents or like individual agents that don't come from the platform. There we need other decentralized technologies, specifically like things like DIDs or self-asserting capabilities that establish this ground of trust. And that's what I'm excited about, because I want to bring in my personal data, my background data in combination with payment, in combination with booking platforms, in order to come up with a solution, and I don't want to have it curated to me. The first solution will be technically easy, like the platform thing, but not as exciting. The second one will be very exciting, but technically more challenging.
Interesting. So now we are kind of building the agent, giving it identity, improving the security, but later we need for agents to communicate with each other, communicate with external systems. We have some community approach like MCP, CLI, and more bootstrap ways. But when the agent will be more responsible for more serious stuff, we will need more serious approaches on how does agents discover services in the way that it's machine readable, payable, and maybe policy compatible. So I want to ask Julius, because it was connected to the work with Stripe.
Well, this is a very just zooming out a little bit, I think what we're currently seeing is a reinvention of the internet or the web as we know it. The web's been around in its current iteration for maybe 20-ish years, if you extend it a little bit further backward into the very early days, maybe 30 to 40. But what we're seeing is that the tools that, and I'm a millennial, and the tools that I've been growing up with are changing fundamentally. The way that we do search as humans is we go to Google and we type in a couple keywords, and then we traverse the various pages that Google returns to us through PageRank. We maybe go up to result 20, right? Who here ever goes on page 3 of the Google search results? Okay, not a single one. Agents are not limited by that capability. Agents can go up to 1,000 because they only rely on machine-readable data. And so the question becomes, what is the true form for agents to discover services that they might want to get access to, either as part of their own autonomous policy and a goal that has been defined by a user, or within a more strict set that also typically comes from their principal. So if you imagine those two modes, mode one is build me an app that sells books. The agent then goes, builds the app, finds how to do payments, etc. Versus, hey, recommend me 10 books. Right? That's a much more limited option space that the agent has. But in either of those two, the agent somehow needs to discover the right tools, and it needs to pay for those tools. And I think there's a big question of how that is going to happen. And next to Stripe, I write a little blog called Get Headless, because I think the headless economy, as this is going to be called, is going to be really, really interesting, where one of the key questions is, what is going to be the Google for agents? And what we've been seeing pop up is these little funny directories where people just basically do machine-readable endpoints with like 1,000 entries for various things that agents can use. And you see this on the X402 webpage, you see it on the machine payments protocol from Stripe. And you see dozens of these, including the MCP directory pages. And so I am having a hard time giving a definitive answer of what is it going to be, like how are agents going to discover, how are they going to select? It's, I think, a completely open question, and there's a lot of different approaches that are coming. Like a lot of agents select based on the pre-existing training data. If you go to a page called amplifying.ai, they do a great case study where they show, if you ask an agent, implement payments for me, 92% of times they choose Stripe. Now, why is that? It's hard to answer. It's in the training data, and it typically comes from Reddit posts. It comes from traditional SEO and discovery strategies. But the question is, are these going to keep on being relevant? Are these going to keep on being fresh going forward, especially as we're moving into a world of models that are going to be continuously learning? So, long-winded answer, but I think we're at this is a very, very interesting space to watch, and there's different answers that are developing.
Interesting. So, Blessing, what should we do so in the future, 95% of the time, agents will choose Circle?
Okay.
No, I'm joking. You could also
check out that webpage. It's awesome. It does it for most of the various tools. You can see what the proclivity of an agent is to choose a given tool set. And there's a very strong tendency towards monopoly.
So to follow up with Julius's answer, I think the way agents discover service is in two ways. But before I explain that, I want to zoom out also so that we compare how agents discover services to how we as humans also discover and use services. So like Julius mentioned, say you want to buy something online, you go on Google and you put in the search, you see a list of brands that you've come across, or brands that you trust or you understand what they offer. You kind of click on the page, you go through what they offer, the services that they offer, you go through the checkout page, you put in the payment details, you make judgment on what you want to buy, the quantity. There's a lot that goes into you kind of like doing that manual discovery process. But when we compare that to how agents would discover services, right, we need to provide agents machine-readable metadata. And we provide this machine-readable metadata in the form of what's the service all about, how much does the service cost, what's the endpoint that the agent would interact with to be able to access this service, or what network is the agent going to make the payment on, or what mode of payment is the agent going to make to interact and get this service or use the service, and most importantly, what results is going to be returned to the agent after said interaction. So, and a lot of that is possible today with X402, but like I said, AI agent discovers services in kind of like 2 layers. The first layer is the marketplace or the registry, where services are listed and all the details that are important for the AI agent to use each service are listed. And we have the X402 marketplace. Like I said, at Seku, we recently launched Seku Agent Stack, which also includes a marketplace of buyers, of sellers, and services that they sell. For example, there are social intelligence services, prediction market services, compute services. So the AI agent can go into that marketplace, traverse through the marketplace by itself, understand the context in which you're asking the agent to complete a certain task, and use that to pick the service that it would interact with and get back from the marketplace. And to give you an example, I built a really cool demo that I posted on X and on LinkedIn. And in this demo, I asked the AI agent in Codex to say, okay, build me an automation that goes online on X, right? Get through all the X data and go through like authorized and trusted web pages and give me back like market sentiment for the day. But don't just do that by giving me wall of text in Codex. Here's my phone number, give me a call every morning at say 9 a.m. and then talk to me about this automation or about the market sentiment or something that I should pay attention that is really interesting for the day. And then the AI agent went through the marketplace, right? It got a service that would provision a phone number. You've traversed through it, got X data, got all the internet data that are authorized, made a summary, and then rings my phone and then say, oh, a blessing, here's what the market is looking like today, here's are the interesting data that I found, and I think is really important to you. So you can kind of see that a lot of that is very easy for the AI agent because there's a marketplace that's listed all the services that the AI agent would use. So the second layer is the payment negotiation layer, which is the X402 layer, where today a seller can attach a cost to a service, and then the AI agent can make a request to get the service, fulfill the payment, and get the response back immediately. So for the way AI agents discover services today includes the marketplace of listed sellers and services, the data they provide, the cost, and how the AI agent would interact with that, and then the payment negotiation layer. And I think a lot of that is what the ecosystem is using for the AI agent to actually discover services today. Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask you a follow-up question on this?
Yes, please.
First of all, if you type into Claude or into OpenAI, they don't find these directories immediately, right? They don't even know they exist. So one is there's a proliferation of these various directories. So there's a Circle one, I think. There's a Coinbase one. There's a Stripe one. There's many of them. Yep. So one, how does the agent know which directory to go to? And then two, in those directories, there can be thousands, 10,000s of services. How does an agent choose which service is the right one? For example, for the phone call, you can use Agent Phone, you can use Twilio, you can use, I don't know how, like a bunch of other. Yeah. How does the agent pick the right one?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think to answer that within the scope of the work we're doing, so today if you go to agent.seku.com, we have a CLI, and the CLI, when you install the CLI in Cloud Code or Codex, you can specify to the agent your intent or the task that you love to get accomplished, and the AI agent knows because we have the setting skills in the CLI that's kind of like been conditioned for the agent to use the Seku marketplace. The AI agent would then use your intent and the task to traverse through the marketplace and then pick a particular service. But I hear you on when he gets into the Circle marketplace.
The human still needs to know
exactly.
to install the Circle CLI.
Yeah, exactly. So the humans actually install the Circle CLI, and the humans also go specify the task that they would love to get accomplished in the prompt. For example, like the phone call example that I gave you, I specifically mentioned to the agent that I'd love for you to provision a call to my phone number, and here's my phone number, and I've primed the prompt to sort of like set guardrails for the AI agent to traverse through the marketplace and use that service.
So it has to check if Twilio or Agent Phone can call your UK phone number or not.
Exactly, and then it takes the cost of the phone call from, of course, my wallet, and I think a lot of that is connected to the wallet as well, where the Circle agent wallet that we provision lets you attach certain guardrails and policies of like different scope that you want the agent to operate within. So, but I think as the space continues to mature, we kind of like understand how to make it more self-serve for the agent to discover services.
I think that.
Sorry.
so I think that for the agentic marketplaces to function, we will need integrity protected systems where, for example, not just services but digital content. If I create something, I want to be able to prove that it's mine, and I don't want anybody else to monetize on that. So the only way to do it is to use systems like blockchain, decentralized storage, where you can sign a digital content that you can prove it's yours.
Yeah, so we are directly narrowing it down to my next question. So for marketplaces to function, you need to pay and you need to receive. So who will prove that you receive the services asset? And when we are talking about receiving, even in crypto, we have DeFi solvers, so it's kind of marketplaces for assets, and they tend to be centralized. So in terms of agents, what do you think like the centralization versus decentralization narrative will play here? Will we have some meta aggregators for marketplaces? Will we have like decentralized networks with bridges between them? Who wants to take on that first?
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, so regarding payments, first of all, is the first step, how agents discover each other. So in our case, all agents are part of the ERC 8004 standard, so they get minted as NFTs on chain. They get their own token ID, which becomes the agent ID, which is a global handle inside the registry. Obviously, they can get minted on multiple chains. They also get the token URI from the NFTs, the agent URI. That is part of the NFT, so that's fixed. But in our case, the URL points to Swarm feed. Feed is like a mutable data, so the URL is the same, but the data can be updated. And it points to, as per the specification, to the agent registration file. Which is mutable because the agent might change its information. So you have basic things there like name, description, avatar, URL. But what's important, you also have the services list. So one of them really important is the X402 payment server URL. The second one for us, it's what we propose is the Swarm catalog URL, which also points to Swarm. So that is a structure living on Swarm that has like a folder registry, let's say like a folder structure, where for each item from the catalog that can be sold, let's say the agent is selling, it belongs to a photograph, it's selling high resolution images, it could have the full data set, so per each photograph it could have the photograph that is encrypted, sits behind an access list, it's encrypted, so obviously you don't want random agents pulling the information without purchasing it. But you could also have this, you'd also have a sample of that image. So like a low resolution one, a thumbnail, watermarked image. And once the prospective, let's say, buyer agent agrees that it wants to do the purchase based on the sample data set, the X402 payment flow dance begins. And after that, as I said, I think in the first question, in the answer to the first question, the conclusion to that is that the public key of the purchasing agent is added to the access list to be able to decrypt the full data set. And that in itself is a proof of purchase. So you also have the on-chain transaction, obviously, from X402. Now, so this is post payment, but with regards to doing the transaction, the initial gatekeeping is actually the reputation. So like you don't necessarily go to a restaurant that has 0 rating or only 2 people visited. Agents also would not necessarily go into an economical relationship, will transact with an agent that has bad reputation. So that in itself would prevent some of the issues that buyer agents would have with the seller not upholding its part of the bargain. Yeah, so basically this would be the core pillars. Yeah.
Do you want to add something?
Maybe it's less of a question of decentralized versus centralized. It's more of a question of how do these new economic modes of buying fit into our pre-existing systems. If you think about how card networks handle transaction fraud or non-delivered goods, the burden of proof is typically on the merchant to prove that they delivered a certain good. So in the digital goods, it means, did you provision the app? Did you provision that the user log in? So you provide the networks in case of a card dispute. You provide them with login data. You provide them with the fact that they downloaded the app, for example. And this is possible because a consumer does very much, they do point-in-time transactions. Like you purchase, I don't know, 5,000 gems for $50. And then maybe an hour later you purchase another. But you don't, and the fundamental change that we're about to see is you might have agents that make transactions in milliseconds and seconds, right? Like every token that you, let's take it to the extreme example, every token that you use, there's not going to be an invoice from Anthropic at the end of the month. There's going to be an immediate transaction. Like, how do you handle that in terms of burden of proof for the merchant to prove that they delivered that token to you? And then to go to your point, I think a scalable solution then is you could tie the delivery or the proof of delivery of digital goods somehow to a blockchain signature, but you would actually, it can't just be how do you tie the usage, right? You have to prove that the user used the good in order to refund it. So these are very, very difficult questions to solve, I think, at this like hyperactive scale. So I don't think we have the answer to that yet, but I think the direction you're proposing is a potential solution, but how it's going to work, I don't know. I mean, obviously games companies, for example, don't issue their games on the blockchain today. They don't.
We tried.
Yeah, we tried, right? So Rare and other games, like, but it didn't work in the real world.
I mean, I had a blockchain game like founded by myself, so yeah, it's a painful topic. I have been here for a long time. Yeah, I really don't like the traditional crypto maxi, like decentralized versus centralized stuff, because even now we are trying to get like push crypto into financial sector in the ways it makes sense. So we optimize, we simplify, we go around. So maybe the same we'll do with agent. We will use it decentralized part whenever we need. And I guess we will finish this panel. I want like each of you to have like 3 sentences each, like easier from now, what parts will be solved, what parts won't be solved, like likely be solved. Let's put it this way. You could go in random order.
No worries. So yeah, I think the current stack is missing some bits and pieces. As we saw one of the earlier presentations, there are some new sort of protocols coming up, and I think that this is natural as the system is evolving and we are going towards an agentic AI marketplace.
No, 3 sentences.
Okay, so yeah, I just hope that agents will live on decentralized systems.
Okay.
I'll let you go first as well.
Okay, so sounds good. I think the whole platform agents will be solved really well. The question is if we want that, so you will be able to go to your favorite platform and use agents to help you book stuff. I want to see established technologies like TLS and passkeys to support like human-in-the-loop systems. That is possible right now. Like if you go to Shellwatch, where you just get looped in, you have a passkey, which is an open standard, which like proves like you did this and you know the source is real, instead of like going the platform play. And then further down the future, I want decentralized standards to win over so that agents have agency.
Okay, I'll go after you. Okay, so I know that today a lot of the agents can pay for stuff that's like solvable. We've seen examples and use cases around that. But what we'd love for us to achieve in a year from now is making agents true economic actors. Right, so think of it, we have a world where we have agent as service, and a lot of new companies are being birthed, running agent as a service, or old software utility companies building from ground up and using agent as a service. And for that to happen, we need an economic operating system where agents can truly operate with wallets, with marketplaces, and that it could also be agent-to-agent procurement or agent-to-human procurement, where agent is paying agent for a service or humans are paying agent for different services. And I think from a year from now, I would love to see that become true, and it's also inspired the work we're doing a lot at Circle.
So things that will be solved, like streamlining on-chain identity and X402 payment for agent-to-agent interactions. Harder to solve reputation, like trusted reputation to prevent spam attacks, Sybil attacks. And impossible, I think that was the third one. I don't have anything here. I'm optimistic. So.
I think what we'll solve is some of the technological challenges, the protocols, the transactions themselves. What I think will be a lot harder is the identity and scale. Like doing transactions and identity at scale is incredibly difficult, and most people underestimate how challenging it is. And what I wish for is adoption of agentic payments and using decentralized mechanisms by normal people, like the average consumers and average businesses, because I think that is the one opportunity that we have with crypto nowadays with agents. Like agents are actually able to operate crypto wallets, unlike most normal consumers.
Yeah, and for me also, I hope we would solve like adoption and business, and then finish building technology. But yeah, thank you for the panel. Do we have time like for Q&A?
I think we can take 2 quick questions from the audience. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
There's a gentleman in the back.
Is there someone with their hands raised?
At the tables.
On the table.
Oh, okay.
Hidden behind the column.
Getting there.
Thanks. Yeah, I would like to go back to the question, like how agents can discover and select services. You were talking about it, like it seems to be right now there are directories, but you also made the example of Google. And when people look at Google, it's not really random what is on the first page, what is on the second page. There's a lot of advertisements. I think we're living in a moment, in a paradisic moment where advertising has not yet conquered the models. When you use ChatGPT, it seems that you are directed to sellers that might have not paid ChatGPT to be transferred to them. But isn't the question also what would be a fair system so that different sellers are still able to sell their services to agents and be selected fairly, and not monopolists, big monopolists like Amazon or whatever, are taking over this discovery and selection field?
I think if you look at the results that come out of Claude or Codex, they're heavily biased on what is currently ranked highly in Google, right? Because they pretty much fed all of that into their training data. What I am hopeful for is that Claude and Codex are going to be much, much better at personalization, so finding solutions that work for you. And it might actually make for a more competitive offering because they might be able to discern changes in price, changes in product quality. Maybe a local product is a better fit for you than a big corporation from somewhere else. Like I think there's the ability to discern, that's the hope at least, right? Discern better for you as an individual user The flip side of that is if ads get introduced, that turns again, like the current whip that we have. I think it's an open question, to be honest, and it'll be, because of the open nature, so this is actually one question I had, because of the open nature of the prompts, it's going to be a little harder to create bidding marketplaces on it. I don't know what the bidding mechanism would look like for a prompt. It's pretty easy on keywords because there's a restricted universe, so you can bid on keyword payments, right? So a keyword that you can bid on is pretty easy. It's much harder to bid on the intent of, hey, I would like to build an application that sells books and it's going to be selling to consumers in Germany. Like, how do you bid? I don't know how to bid on that yet.
Yeah, and I think the question is, does the agentic web help us deconstruct these monopoly effects that the Web 2 made? Like, I would already be happy if like Stripe is my payment provider on my agents and it helps me pay for products that are across the internet. The convenient thing about Amazon right now is I go to Amazon, it has all this products, but it's also convenient around paying and it's convenient around shipping. So if the agentic web helps us break that up, that's what I hope is that future. I can choose the payment provider, I can choose the merchant, and I can choose maybe the delivery method, and it's not complicated anymore because of agents.
All right, we can take one more question. Did you have a follow-up remark? Looks like it's your turn again.
Do you want to just join the panel? Or?
No, I don't have your experience in that field. But we were also talking about still about the discovery and selection process. Like when I use a service on the internet, a new service, I mean, I try it out. Shouldn't be that the same case for agents? Like, don't agents basically have to learn the quality of the services to then be able to eventually select them better for your use case?
I want to add to that question. So in Ethereum, we have something called Flutarchy. It's basically a prediction market for outcomes. So you suggest something, you then compete, and then money getting distributed to the one who does like better, in a sense. So maybe we could combine it for agents.
There is going to be a G2A for agents. What's the G2? The software comparison marketplace. There's going to be something like that for agents. If anybody wants to start a business, I think this is a good one. I don't know what it's going to look like, and I think there's going to be various reputational mechanisms for agents to decide what is a good fit for which use case, including, I think, some mechanism by which coding agents can report the results of the tools that they integrated with, whether that is API stability or ease of integration or breakages during an integration. I think there will be some sort of reputational mechanism like that. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I agree. The most important part is the reputation. And we're also going to have like a sample of the full data set, which obviously a malicious agent could lie about. But reputation is the main function that will curate these issues in the long term. There is a precedent in the real world. I mean, eBay function like that. You could random people put anything online, and the buyers purchased without knowing in advance they're getting the correct deal. So they could get a sack of potatoes. They wanted to buy a PC. So. And this was the mechanism by doing having reviews, a review system.
Yeah, just to quickly add, I think a lot of work is being done on with protocols like 8004 and 8183, right? Agent reputation and identity. I think a few months from now or like a year from now, I'd love to see a world where all of that is developed for us to like attach a reputation score, just like you mentioned, to an agent. And I can say, oh, if I'm buying a service from this agent, or if I'm interacting with this agent, I can see that this agent offers a particular service, and then I know there's a reputation score attached to it, and that gives me a peace of mind to be able to interact with said agent.
I have one more interesting. So one of my pet peeves for this new economy, or one of my interesting theses, is that I don't know if does anybody here read Bild.de? All right. Yeah. Okay. It's a German tabloid. They recently launched a very interesting, kind of like Stiftung Warentest, so a trusted reputation, a trusted review tool. So they will take vacuum cleaners and they'll tell you what the best vacuum cleaner is in a given category for a given household. I think it was accidental that they launched it 3 or 4 years ago, but these are the assets that are going to become incredibly valuable because you're creating trusted reviews that agents can take as part of their decision process. And so if I was a private equity fund, I would probably start rolling up some of these companies like Stiftung Warentest, Bild, Wirecutter, which has been bought by the New York Times, and put together a trusted portal for agents to choose given services. Finanztipp, yes, yes. If anybody wants to start that business, come talk to me.
Yeah, I guess that's all for today. Thank you for the panel. Thank you for your experience.
Can we please have a round of applause for all the panelists and the moderator as well? And maybe we have a quick picture on stage. Before we before the next session, I would like to shortly tell you also about the Agentic Economy Forum, which is happening in October 2027. It is going to be taking place at the same venue. It is going to be a pretty similar format, and the narrative is around infrastructure to execution, building Germany's role in the agentic economy. The strategic question and discussion is, what is Germany's role in the agentic economy, and how can leaders integrate, govern, and scale these systems? Who is it for? C-suite and enterprise leads, so executives and upper management defining the adoption and integration strategy for autonomous agentic workflows. And of course, the policy and regulators, the public sector leaders, and think tank experts shaping the guardrails for AI-driven economic interaction and systematic risk management. And of course, for all of you who enjoyed this session, these sessions, make sure that you try and attend the Agentic Economy Forum. And also, I want to tell you about the AI Agents Summit 2027, the one that's happening next year. The dates are already fixed and the link is up on Luma. The super early bird tickets are live as well. So please make sure that you grab your early bird tickets. And we're going to take a 15-minute break now and join again for some very interesting sessions. So I hope to see you all back in another 15 minutes. Thank you all.